Hello, my name is Evan and I am from the class of DISM 2A22. Today I will be covering the key elements from Lab 1, Lab 2 and Lab 3. So let's get started. So, for the first key element of Lab 1, it will be promoting a server to a domain controller. Before we can do this, we need to ensure that we are in a domain. So currently on our Windows Server 2016 machine, under Server Manager, we can see that we are currently in the domain smw.soc.com. To further ensure this, we can go to CMD and type in the following code, which would return us the domain which we are currently in, which is smw.soc.com. In the case that we are not in a domain, it would actually return us our work group. So to ensure that we are a domain controller, we can type in the following code and it will return us a domain role of number 5. And according to the domain role website, it says that a value of 5 actually indicates that we are a primary domain controller. For the second element, it will be adding in DHCP and DNS services to the domain controller and ensuring that it is working. To do this, we can go to Server Manager, Manage, Add Roles and Features, and we can click Next until we hit Server Roles. And as you can see, my DHCP and DNS server are already installed on this server. To ensure that both of these are working, we can go over to Server Manager and click on the DHCP tab. And as you can see, it is online. We can click on the DNS tab and we can see that it's online, and therefore indicating that both of these services are functioning and running well. The third and last element of Lab 1 will be joining a client to the domain. So currently, I am on my Windows 10 client, and in Control Panel, we are able to actually change the domain or workgroup of the client computer. As you can see, currently I have already joined the smw.soc.com domain. To further ensure this, we can go to domain, we can go to command, we can type in the following code, and it will return us a domain role of number 1. Now, according to the website, it indicates that a value of 1 would mean that we are a member workstation, and therefore showing that we have successfully joined a client to the domain. So now for Lab 2, the first element that I'm going to be talking about is using the BPA to check against the configuration of the Windows server. Now under Server Manager, Local Server, if we scroll down, we will come across the Best Practice Analyzer. Under the Best Practice Analyzer, it will basically show all the issues found on the server, and each of the issues will fall under one of the 3 main severity categories, being information, warning, and the highest, which is error. So let's go ahead and try and solve this. srv.sys should be set to start on demand issue. Essentially, the client computers will not be able to access the file shares and other SMB-based network services on the computer. So to set this to start on demand, we can go ahead to CMD and we can use this command here to set it to start on demand. So as you can see, now the change service config is set to success. If we go ahead and refresh it, so as you can see now, the srv.sy issue has been solved and is no longer here. So for the second element of Lab 2, I'm going to be talking about the use of group policy managements. So as you can see over here, we can actually edit group policies using the local group policy editor, also known as gpedit.msc. So there are many different group policies which we can actually edit, and the one which I've configured is under Windows Update and Configure Automatic Updates. So under here, I've set it to notify for download and notify for install, which is different from Windows default automatic download. So after configuring this, we can actually see under Server Manager that the Windows Update check for updates only using Windows Update. And if we go on to our client, we can see in Update and Security, under Windows Update, we can see that it says now that some settings are managed by your organization, therefore showing that this group policy is taking place. So for the third and last element of Lab 2, I'll be talking about the use of remote server administration tools, aka RSAT. This essentially allows administrators to access administrator tools from their own computers. To do this, we can simply right-click the home, go to Run, type in MMC, click Yes. We can go over to Files, add or remove snap-ins, and let's just say I want to add in the Active Directory users. We click OK, and as you can see, the snap-in has successfully been added here. And if we were to go over and expand everything under smw.soc.com and users, we can see that the snap-in has basically been copied over from the domain controller, and we can go over to our Windows Server 2016 and verify that it's the exact same. So for Lab 3, the first element which I'm going to be talking about will be the enabling of the shared folder. Firstly, we need to ensure that our network discovery and file and printer sharing is both turned on. And in order to do this, we need to go to our tools and configure using the security configuration wizard. I've already done this in advance, and therefore I'm able to turn on both these settings. So next, I have created a shared folder called Shared Folder A with the contents of Shared A notes. And I've already shared this folder. And so looking at the file path or the share path, this is the share path. So now taking note of this, we can go ahead to our Windows 10 client and type in the share path, and we can access the shared folder. And just to confirm, here on the client side, the notes in the shared folder is the exact same as the notes in this shared folder, therefore showing that the shared folder is working. So for the second element of Lab 3, I'm going to be talking about configuring shared folder permissions. So over here on my Windows Server 2012, I've already created a shared folder called Shared B. And I've also shared it out with everyone. And if we actually take a look, I have given staff 1 read and write permissions. So we can actually test this out on our Windows 10 client. So on our Windows 10 client, as you can see, currently I am logged in as staff 1, and we can proceed to access the shared folder. So with read and write permissions, we should be able to configure the file and save the modifications. So as you can see, the shared folder is actually saved, and to confirm that these modifications have actually been saved, we can go back to our server 2012 and access the notes and see if the changes are there. So as you can see, staff 1 has successfully changed the folder files. Third and last element of Lab 3, I will be talking about audit options for file and folders. So here on the Windows Server 2016, I have created an audit testing folder with test.txt inside. And looking at the properties, we can see that the security permissions essentially gives everyone read and execute permissions. Therefore, if I were to log in as staff 1, I would only be able to read and execute the file and not write or make changes to it. So to enable auditing, we can simply go to the properties, security, advanced, and auditing here. And as we can see, I've enabled auditing for read and execute for everyone. So looking at event viewer, I'm able to see that when I logged in as staff 1 and attempted to modify the file test.txt in audit testing, it has been logged as an audit failure, as I do not have permission to do so. Therefore, this is essentially the audit options for file and folders. So, we have come to the end of this video, and to conclude things off, in Lab 1, we went through promoting server to a domain controller, adding in DHCP and DNS services to the domain controller, and ensure that it is functioning well, joining a client to the domain, and in Lab 2, we went through the using of the BPA to check against the configurations of the Windows Server, using group policy management, and using the remote server administration tools. And finally, in Lab 3, we went through the enabling of shared folder feature, configuring shared folder permissions, and audit options for file and folders. Thank you for listening to this video. Goodbye.